Friends, the solution is so simple.
It was a reaction to the horror of 9/11.
If elected officials will not lead, then it is up to the citizens.
A way for people to really do something to make America safe.
Secure our borders and enforce our laws.
It was as if 9/11 had somehow unleashed a growing frustration.
Here we were, grandparents, and we were willing to go down and do something about the border, and our government wouldn't do.
For many, it's a noble calling. And Chris Simcox, the president of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps, a worthy leader.
If anyone wanted to attack America,
using the media,
I think the American people are fed up with this charade.
The greatest threat to our national security is the border with Mexico.
United, they would contribute and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars.
How much of your life have you dedicated to this cause?
110%.
And make sacrifices to build a sturdy barrier to keep illegal border crossers out of the U.S. At least, that's what they thought. Today, the barrier is little more than an invisible fence to nowhere. And there are growing questions about Chris Simcox.
For asking those questions, we were terminated from the organization.
And what's happened to all the Minuteman money?
We needed equipment, and we were not getting equipment.
To this day, we still don't have an idea of how much Minuteman Civil Defense Corps has raised. We don't have a clue.
Chris Simcox called these allegations, quote, a witch hunt, and refused repeated requests from CNN for an interview. As for the plan for the massive fence, that part of the story is only more curious. In the spring, a year ago, Chris Simcox, the leader of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps, was facing growing agitation from members of his group.
What happened to the money? Why don't we have more gear?
And that's why Simcox's own lieutenants were stunned on Memorial Day. It was a groundbreaking on the Arizona border.
But all at once, we're going to build a fence if the government doesn't build it. And we all looked at each other, what?
And not just any fence, something like the barrier Israel erected to keep Palestinians from crossing from the West Bank. Posted on the Minuteman website, it was described as 14 feet high, equipped with security cameras and sensors, topped with razor wire and flanked by ditches to stop vehicles. 2,000 miles of state-of-the-art fencing, wanting to raise $55 million. One man actually mortgaged his home, donating more than $100,000. Keeping them honest, we went looking for the fence. We did find the fence the federal government is building, but where was that 14-foot-high Minuteman fence?
If you look really, really closely, you can see parts of the Minuteman fence down there, but in order to get a true understanding of the Minuteman fence, you have to go down to the ground.
This is the Minuteman fence right here, and it's a 5-strand barbed wire fence.
It wasn't until they actually started the ceremony that it became clear this was going to be a cow fence.
In fact, the rancher who owns the land, John Ladd, is more than happy the Minuteman built him a fence to keep in his cattle and keep out Mexican cows. But while there are some tall poles, there is no Israeli-style barrier.
So this isn't real fencing material, this is just...
No, this is electrical conduit.
So then why bring the poles?
It's a sham.
Show and tell.
Sham.
These former state and national Minutemen leaders say the groundbreaking was a ploy by Simcox to raise even more money. But when they questioned Simcox about how donations were being spent, they say he fired them. Simcox now says that he never promised to build the high-tech security fence on Ladd's ranch, and he insists the barbed wire fence really does protect the country.
And does this fence stop people from crossing the border?
Not a bit.
This area is great for illegal activity.
Another border rancher, Richard Hodges, agreed to allow Simcox to build nearly a mile of that Israeli-style fence on his land.
What do you think the purpose of this fence is?
Oh, absolutely to stop people. Yeah, absolutely.
But that was 10 months ago. Today, here's what we found on Hodges' ranch. Very little. No razor wire, no trenches, none of the promised fancy facial recognition cameras. In fact, the company Simcox cited in his news release tells CNN it has no deal to provide cameras and hasn't even heard from the Minutemen in 18 months.
Is that what donors thought they were donating their money toward?
No.
So what happened to all the donated money? Well, it's hard to tell. Simcox posted his group's most recent tax filing and an independent audit on the Minuteman website. In the audit, the largest expense listed by far is professional services. No further details given. CNN asked Chris Simcox for responses to all the allegations made by these former insiders. Simcox told us that these allegations and CNN's investigation are, quote, part of a smear campaign. He declined multiple interview requests. Paul Newman, the board supervisor of Cochise County, Arizona, says Simcox's fence was a pipe dream from the beginning. After all, the border is a patchwork of public and private land, and a fence builder could never get permission to cross all of it.
In actuality, for the people who are still giving him money, they should know that that money is not going to building a fence.
Just last month, in an email, Simcox asked for even more donations, this time boasting of this new communications tower. But the tower owner told CNN the email is a lie. The Minutemen aren't using the tower, he says, and he only let the Minutemen put this small antenna on the roof of the shack next door.